everybody, and welcome to Stop Being Polite, the recap of the real world New Orleans homecoming. I am Katie, and I'm here with my co host, Kari. Kari, how are you?
I am good. Just finished up work, ready to podcast about quite the episode of
Quite.
this show. I tweeted this yesterday when I watched it the first time, but there is a point in the show where I was like so taken aback by what happened that my body produced a noise that my dog like was dead asleep and woke up and was like, what? He didn't obviously say this. My dog does not talk, but ran over and was like, are you okay? What's going on?
Yeah, it was a lot.
Yes. So I'm so excited to talk about it.
Yeah, I am too. Julie's finally showing I mean, I think she's been showing her true colors this whole time, but she's really showing her true colors today. I have a friend who is somewhat of a Julie defender, not like a Julie fan. I don't know if he's a Julie fan. I don't think he is, but he's like, you have to cut her a little slack because of the way she grew up and whatever. And then he texted me after he watched the episode yesterday and was like, okay, you're right. Julie's a monster person. I was like, yeah, exactly. She is. That's what I've been saying. But cool, let's go ahead and jump right in. So the episode was a to be continued part 2, I guess, of last week. So the name of the episode is Out of Bounds Part 2. And oh my, was Julie out of bounds in this episode. We pick back up at the bar where we left off last week with Julie just being completely belligerent. And Melissa just had a great line about how she doesn't want to be out with these like drunk people falling all over themselves. And she says, bitch, we are old. What is you doing? Which, listen, I feel old and I'm younger than them. And like, I wouldn't be out at a bar acting like this in my mid 30s, let alone my 40s.
Mm-hmm. I'm the first one to leave the bar. I'm like, I'm over this shit. Like,
yeah.
Bye.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. So Julie ends up running back inside. And it does seem like Danny wants to go back inside too. Am I like reading that wrong? It seems like Danny was like, we're going back in.
I think Danny was more drunk than Julie was. It's just that Danny seems to like be able to hold himself together a bit more than Julie can. So agreed. I think it was just the two of them being like, no, woo, we're having a good time, woo. But like, not Danny needed to go too. He just wasn't being Julie.
Right, exactly. So eventually, she runs back in. Danny's inside too, but then the producer intervenes, and eventually it's like, no, the night is over. Like this night is done, and then they leave. And then as that's happening, Julie starts to say like, I don't feel good, and then it just all starts. You don't think it could go more downhill than it's already been, but oh my, it certainly goes more downhill. So she gets in the car and she like basically immediately passes out. Her face is like, she just looks like she's just no longer with us. In like, reality, she's off somewhere. She's alive, but she's like off somewhere else. And Melissa opens the window and she's hanging out the window. I don't know that she vomits yet. I don't think that she does. But they pull up in front of the house and she face plants, which we've seen in the trailer. We knew that was coming. But her head like literally bounces off of the concrete.
I consider myself a concussion expert.
Yes, and, you've had a number of them.
And I saw that, and I'm like, how does she not have a concussion? Like, one, how is she not dead? But two, like, how does she at least not have a concussion? That noise was so loud. I don't know if like MTV kind of or Paramount Plus like kind of gave it a little bit of extra effect with the sound, but that was she should be happy she's alive and can or at least like can spell her name still, because I was like shocked by that. Like the episode title is Out of Bounds, and I think that's like it represents if Car is inbounds, she fell out of bounds hard. Like
she did. She hit another bound real hard with her face. I was just shocked that she didn't have any like visible marks on her face. I mean, she did not catch herself. She just tumbled out of the car and hit her face on the ground.
Yeah.
She's not missing any teeth. Like you said, she doesn't have a concussion. She seems totally fine. I'm very confused. She's very lucky that didn't end up more tragic for her. When she gets up, Danny and Tokyo are helping her get up. And then she, Tokyo's trying to help her walk in. And she just becomes, once again, I think belligerent is going to be the word of the episode. She just becomes even more belligerent. And she's like, get off me. Don't touch me. Get off me. And she runs into a tree, with a number of branches, like a lot of branches. This isn't just like a tiny little tree. Like I mean, it's not a huge tree, but she walks into this tree and it's very like a sticky tree. Like it has a lot of branches on it. And
A sticky tree.
yeah, it's a sticky tree, you know, it's got like a little stick.
To describe having a lot of branches and not like
Yeah.
it has like sap coming from it or anything.
No, yeah, it's just a lot of sticks sticking out that are gonna stick you. And I think a lot of those branches stuck her. She was like, they hit her in the face. She was a mess. She was a mess. But she really did not, I guess, at this point, want Tokyo touching her. At least that's what she wants us to believe. So she said, you know, fucking get away from me, stop touching me. And then the next scene we see Tokyo helping her. You know, she eventually gets in the house and Tokyo's helping her up the stairs and she's just saying, like, I'm gonna puke. And she just gets down on the bed. She's laying on her bed. We break the fourth wall. We see a producer. We have a lot of zoom ins on some vomit.
Yeah,
like way too many. Very unnecessary. This is like an MTV staple though. Like
on the
I know you're a challenge
too.
person. When they have those disgusting eating challenges, we just get slow-mos of people vomiting. Like MTV loves to show us disgusting things happening from people's mouths for some reason.
Yep.
I don't know why. Yeah. Yeah, very, very. But essentially, we just see her. Well, we figure out that the crackers are because she had crackers on the bed.
Mm-hmm.
We see the box of crackers. She didn't vomit full unchewed crackers up. They were on the bed. They fell into her vomit. Melissa brings her in a bucket, a garbage pail, and not realizing that she had already vomited. And Melissa, unfortunately, her sock is a casualty of Julie's vomit on the floor. And she steps in it, which is disgusting. And then we just really see Tokyo being a literal angel on earth to this woman who just does not deserve all of this care.
He was being too nice.
Way too nice.
And that's not like a negative at him. It's more just like, I care about people in my life to the extent where I would do a lot for them, but to sleep on a towel on the floor next to him when they like just puked off the bed, how do you know they're not rolling over and puking on you? Tokyo, you were too nice. You were too nice.
Way too. This could never be me. I wouldn't even sleep in that room. Like I'd be like, it smells like vomit in here. She's been puking on the floor. There's vomit everywhere. She also was being a monster to this guy all night. Like a total monster. Mm-hmm. But he's like putting ice on her neck to shock her system, which I've never heard of this before.
Me neither. I was wondering the same thing. Like, is this some little like nuance that I've never heard of?
Maybe. I don't know. Gotta try it next time. But he's holding her hand. He, like you said, he puts a towel down and sleeps on the floor, literally right where she vomited. She vomited there. Yeah. He put a towel on the floor and he slept in it. Like imagine the scent of this room.
No, thank you.
And this man is just so selfless. Yeah, we need a candle. We need a whole like Swiffer situation. We gotta Swiffer wet jet this place up. But we do get a little bit of a confessional from Matt. Matt's kind of like here lurking the whole time, but like doing nothing. The whole time Matt's on this show, he's doing nothing and he's saying words that don't mean anything.
Yeah.
He's always like, should we hug it out? Let's have a conversation. Whatever you need to do, that's what we'll do. He's just like saying words that have no actual meaning. Mm-hmm. He's barely a person.
Yeah, and he gave a confessional that made it seem in the preview that a lot more shit was going to go down than like what went down. Like, all of a sudden, like a hurricane comes in or a tornado comes in. Like, it was just Julie. Yeah, like Danny was probably drunk too, but he at least didn't seem to make an ass out of himself. Right. But like Julie, I just wouldn't put that at natural disaster level. That's all. I think we're being a little dramatic, and he probably also just like, I'm sure that his experience with drinking and people drinking heavily is limited mostly to his experience from 22 years ago when he was living in that house. So like this is a hurricane in comparison.
Yeah.
Honestly, like that really wasn't even that bad.
No, I mean for people like us, I think we would just, like we said, be like, She okay? Okay, great. Shut the door. Let her puke it out. We've been there. I've been there. I don't want to speak for you.
Mhm.
I've not, maybe not to this extent,
Safe
been there.
assumption. Safe
Yeah.
assumption.
But like I've puked, I've slept on a bathroom floor, and I'm good. Just let me lay on the
Mhm.
floor, especially a bathroom floor. That's like where she should have been. Nice cold tile bathroom floor makes you feel so good.
Mhm.
Um, sad that, I that's like the thing that I immediately think about is sleeping on a bathroom floor, but it helps. And then you know what? The next day you apologize. You say, I'm sorry if I made a fool out of myself. Thank you guys so much for helping me. But that's not what happened the next day.
No, she's
That's
the
not what we
exact
got.
opposite.
No. We get Danny in the morning saying he's so hungover, he feels like total garbage. Then we see Julie in her yoga gear, which she really loves. She's always in like yoga mom clothes. And she's just like doing yoga in the living room in front of everybody, basically. Just, I don't know if she's like doing this to show everybody that she's fine or like this is just where she normally does yoga, but I feel like there's got to be a better place for her to be doing this.
Yeah, is there like that? Even that backyard-ish
Right.
area, right?
Right. It
I
just
don't
seemed
know.
like an awkward place. It seems like it's a large home. So I don't know, it's strange. But she's like, I feel great. I threw up, which was great because I got
Mhm.
everything out and now I feel awesome. And I just had like a really fun, great night. I'm like, what is wrong with this person? This is like where we really started. We thought the night was bad, but then the next day everything just gets so much worse because she
Yeah.
has not an ounce of humility in her.
Yeah, normally, even if like when I'm thrown up from drinking and it has inconvenienced no one except myself, I still like do the rounds of like, hey, did I say or do anything stupid last night? Like, who do I
Right.
need to apologize to? The amount of
Right.
times I've sent text messages to like my close friends being like, is there anybody I need to apologize to from last
Yeah.
night? Like, and
Yes.
she's just out here like, I'm fine, but you know who isn't? Tokyo. Fuck that guy.
Yeah, it's a little wild. And as you know, there's been some events here in New York this week, so I've been out, I've been having some adult beverages. I had a couple last night, and I was fine. I wasn't like I was maybe like a buzz. I had a buzz going, but I wasn't drunk by any means. And even today I'm like, was I awkward? Like, did I embarrass myself? I don't remember. Like, did I say anything weird? And my partner Matt is like, no, you were fine. And I'm like, okay, I'm just like, I don't know. I get in my head. So the fact that Julie could act like that and then act like this the next day when she's blackout drunk, face planted on the ground, no mark on her face anywhere, but she does have marks on her back. Well, we'll get there because she doesn't talk about it yet. We kind of pivot from here. We do have Melissa and Tokyo kind of talking in the kitchen, but not really like talking. They're just making like sounds at each other, which I love this. It's like their
Mm-hmm.
own little like and I love it. I love their newfound friendship. And I'm so
Mm-hmm.
glad that they're able to connect on this level this time because they really weren't able to do that in the original season. And I'm such a Tokyo stan right now. I just want to protect him at all costs. And it seems like Melissa does as well.
Yeah, and it seems like their friendship has carried on past like, the
Yes.
filming of the season. As I told Katie this morning, Melissa and I had a little chat back and forth via Twitter about Tokyo's music videos
Love it.
on Instagram. So it seems she like she sent like a 3-tweet reply just like hyping up Tokyo's music videos to me.
Love this. I love this so much. And I was going to say, I told you also over DM, but, and obviously now, but we've been looking for his YouTube
Yeah.
channel and there's nothing there, but the videos are on his Instagram. So this
Mm-hmm.
apples, chop it up, onions, chop the song that I can't get out of my head. I was like, I have been just saying like avocados. What? Just walking through my house. That's just what I've been doing. It's an earworm. He's got to keep it going. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
just so happy that it's on his Instagram now. So if
Yep.
you need to hear these songs again, which everybody should be hearing them, check out his Instagram. It's great. And I'm glad that Melissa is his hype woman on that too, because they're wonderful. But then we kind of like pivot and we go back to Danny on the couch talking about Paul. And I feel like this is a different time frame. This feels like it was another day because everybody's in a different outfit. Danny's not hungover. Everybody's just like, I don't know. It seems like everybody's like in a different space mentally at this
Mm-hmm.
point. So I feel like maybe we're getting like a little editing funny work, but I guess it's not necessarily all in chronological order.
Yeah.
But he talks a little bit about how he adopted his daughter. Her name is Naya. She's 5. He adopted her at birth, and he was married after Paul, which he says that he was married. And then Julie goes, "Was it Paul?" Or says, like, "Not Paul." And I'm like, didn't we just have like a full on conversation about how Danny and Paul broke up? And it was, I'm like, I
Literally
was
like
just
the day
confused about the
before.
timeline. Yeah, like, but did this conversation happen before that? I don't know. It was very strange. But Danny essentially reveals that when he and Paul broke up, that Paul was dating their mutual best friend behind Danny's back. I take it to mean that it overlapped with their relationship. I don't know that we fully got confirmation of that.
Yeah, it wasn't explicitly said. I actually didn't think of it that way, but I am also someone that for the most part it needs to be explicitly said to me for me
Mhm.
to think it. Otherwise I like take it for face value.
Yeah.
Um so it could be either way, I guess.
Yeah, it's open to interpretation, I think we can say. But he basically says that, they broke up and they haven't spoken since 2006 when they broke up. Their just lives have been completely separate, which is a long time.
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm the type of person where if I'm out of a relationship, I don't want to keep in contact with the person.
Oh, I will block you on
Yes.
everything
Same.
within minutes, like
Same.
Guinness World Record type of speed.
Same. And I have to imagine that they had mutual friends and stuff, so it's maybe more strange.
Mhm.
But to me, I'm like, yeah, that seems healthy that you haven't been speaking, especially with like how big this relationship was and how
Yeah.
toxic it seemed at the end. But I understand, it felt very like open, like an open wound. And it caused Danny a lot of trauma and a lot of pain. And he mentioned having nightmares and flashbacks of some of these, the end of his relationship with Paul. So, it seems like it's a good thing that he wants to kind of just like tie this up in a bow and move beyond it. Like the
Mhm.
chapter has to be closed for him to be able to fully leave it behind. So he decides to reach out to Paul to talk, and they plan to meet up. Do you think this text message was real? We saw a text message on the screen.
Yeah. I I don't know because like does Paul live in New Orleans? Like
Right. I'm
where
not
does
sure.
Paul live that he can show up the next day? Like drop everything and show up the next day if he doesn't live within I will say at most a 3-hour drive.
Right. I know. He did say like I can be there tomorrow, but does that mean he's like hopping on a plane to get here tomorrow?
Right.
I just
And
want to know more.
I have a I don't know if it was real. Like I feel like there had to be some premeditation by
Mhm.
um our Paramount Plus
Yes,
production,
I agree.
but I don't know if like maybe the text message actually happened. I can't imagine that this was as organic as the show wants us to think it was.
Right. I completely agree. So that was interesting. But as this is happening, or as the producers are making us think that this is happening, Danny's hung over in bed. Julie comes in the room and goes, "Did he do this to me?" And she shows scratches on her back, which immediately I'm assuming it's from the tree
The
that she walked
sticky
into,
tree.
the sticky tree
The
that
sticky tree
stuck its
sticker.
sticks. Yeah, it stuck her in the back and it scratched her. They're literal like straight line scratches down her back. Tokyo was not doing anything to her that could have possibly caused this.
Right.
And she keeps saying there's bruises on my back. Did he do this to me? And it's like you walked into a tree.
Yeah.
There's no way. There's just no. So Melissa was like, "What?" Like she basically like immediately her sensors went off and was like, "What are you saying?" And
Mhm.
we get the confessional of her where she's like, "You also face planted on the ground and walked into a tree." Um, but she doesn't really say anything at this point. She lets Julie walk out of the room, and then obviously more to come from here. So in everybody's hungover state, Kelly plans a trip to Cafe Du Monde, which is a famous beignet cafe, I guess, and coffee cafe in
Yes.
New Orleans.
I was there in
Looks
January.
delicious. Ooh, was it delicious?
Yes, it is messy though because of like the powdered
The powdered
sugar and
sugar.
stuff.
Mm.
So it is like uh it you need to go knowing that it's gonna be messy, like wear appropriate attire. But yeah, it's just like this big, almost like tent, and you walk up and
Oh.
you order your coffee and beignets, and there's places to sit in there, and then like a little bit around. But yeah, very touristy thing to do.
Mm. Yeah, I was curious if it was one of those places where it is a very touristy thing to do and it's like not that good. There are better places to go, or is this like the place and that's why it's touristy?
I think it's like the original of
Okay.
all of it, but it wasn't. I mean, it was still good. It's just like that's their thing, though. Like you aren't getting
Hmm.
anything else there. You are getting beignets and cafe au lait. That's it.
Mm. Okay.
So I think like it's obviously worth going, and you'll get like different renditions of
Mm.
beignets across the city. But
Ooh.
that's like the origin. The lines are long. It moves
Hmm.
fast. You go up, you pay, you get your stuff, you keep it moving. But they are good.
Okay. Okay, good. I'm glad they were good. And they do seem messy.
Yeah,
Powdered sugar like that always it's uncontrollable.
yeah. And no, I specifically remember because for some of us who have a way to catch things on our chest, aka boobs, like it's just the shelf was catching all the powdered
Mm-hmm,
sugar. And
hmm.
so I'm sitting there like batting it off of me. And my boyfriend's like, I can't take you anywhere. I'm like, correct. But you chose to. So this is what you have to deal
Right.
with now.
Yeah.
So help me out. Like, get this off of me.
Oh man. Okay, so if you go, wear like a bib or something,
Yeah, a
essentially.
bib or like be ready to shed layers, switch layers, or like
Okay.
something. Just know that it's going to be messy.
Okay. That's good to know. That's good to know. So, at this point, they're all sitting outside, just chatting. And Julie's talking about how much fun she had last night and was having so much fun at the club, and how she feels like the drag clubs and the gay bars are like safe spaces because no one's trying to touch you. And then she basically is like looking at Kelly and she's like, I mean, except Tokyo. Uh, and this is kind of like where we just lose the plot entirely.
The fact that Tokyo did not just like turn and be like, "Excuse me, bitch," he's some sort of saint because
I
I
know.
wanted to lose my mind and I wasn't even there.
Yeah. I- As soon as she said that, I was like, she's really not doing this. Like, this is really not where we're going with it. Like, I knew because, like, it kind the trailer kind of alluded to, like, this is where we're going to end
Mm-hmm.
up. But I just, like, she is twisting this situation and this narrative into something that it completely was not. Which obviously we know, and we'll talk about it because that's really where the episode goes from here. But Melissa kind of looks at Tokyo and is like, "You're stewing," and he's like, "You know it." And like they both look like they're just like raging inside, which
Mm-hmm.
I have been there so many times with just like internal rage. I can only imagine how they're feeling with
Mm-hmm.
like the added racism from Julie. I mean, that's essentially what she's doing right
Yeah.
now is just adding, regardless if she says she doesn't realize. I mean, it's just like this is like a total microaggression, maybe even more than a microaggression at this point, and she just kind of continues to double down on it as we go.
That's what I don't understand is like how she can continue to come at things from this perspective. Like even just when she first did he do this to me? Like what do
Yeah,
you mean? What do you mean? What tell me exactly what you mean right now because
right,
like you're making it seem like someone intentionally hurt you
right,
and that's not the case at all. Like everyone had your best intentions in mind. And the fact that you like didn't have your best intentions in mind because you got hammered and kind of like went into it with this perspective of like, I like let me live and very naively thinks that like bad shit won't happen to her.
well, that's like the thing, and it almost feels like she wanted something bad to happen to her, and that's why we're getting this like, did he do this to me? Kind of narrative because nothing bad happened to her at the bar, so now she has to have something bad happen to her after the bar, so she can have this victim complex. So she's pinning it on Tokyo, like she needs to be the center of it all, and this is how she's going to do it.
And especially when it ties into her only what fourth time drinking ever.
Right. Yeah. She says that she's only drank 3 or 4 times in her life. And I was like, "Ugh, this is a mess. Like, this is just a mess. Everything that's happening here is just a mess.
Mhm.
So they separate into different cars to go home, and I think it's Danny, it's Kelly, it's Jamie and Julie in one car, and then it's Tokyo, Melissa, and Matt in another car. And in the Julie car, she's just going on a tirade about how Tokyo was forcefully touching her, and she kept saying, "Stop! Don't touch me." He was the only one that was touching her. Look at these marks on my back. I didn't want to leave. There's no like self-awareness because just because he's the only one that wants to leave, doesn't mean everybody else has to go. And then we get this when Danny basically says like, yeah, but you did like pretty much have to leave. Like you needed to go. And we get Jamie in a confessional saying like, I can understand where Tokyo is coming from because I was about to do it myself.
Right.
But why are you not saying anything to her in the car? Jamie
Right.
is what I want to. Why are you sitting there completely silently?
That's my issue as like the episode goes on as well. That it's been this way for 20 years. It seems
Exactly.
like it's Melissa that always has to say something. Like
Yes.
Danny has said something, obviously with like the issue pertained to him, but it's Melissa who has to like stand up for the cause, even when like given when it comes to the racism part of it, it is like her cause. However, like she isn't involved in this situation except for being there. But at the same time, everybody else who was there, like really the only person who shouldn't have to say anything is Matt because he wasn't, and I guess Kelly, they weren't out.
Yeah.
But everyone else should be like, no, you were a drunk, dumb bitch last night. Like, this is your fault. Your actions caused these reactions. So fucking get it together.
This is what I truly do not understand. Like, you're absolutely right. And I don't know how none of these other people in the house are saying, like, Julie, no, you're absolutely wrong here. You are wrong. And, we'll get into the racism of it all because it's a major plot point of this episode. But even aside, like, even if that wasn't a factor, let's say Jamie did this to her and it wasn't Tokyo. And she was saying this about Jamie. Regardless, she's wrong. Like, this is a completely skewed version of everything that happened. So then we get into the car with Tokyo, Melissa, and Matt. And basically they're like, she's twisting this narrative into something that it's not. And Matt again just comes out with like is it possible for you guys to have a conversation? It's like, just stop with this. Just like, he's just, I don't know. Something about Matt is really like getting under my skin because every scene we see him in, he's just like, you're doing great. Can we do a hug? Can we have a hug?
Part of it for Matt is he's treating his 6 roommates like his 6 kids.
Exactly. That's what it feels like. I'm going into dad mode. Can we have a hug? It's just like, what's the point of you being here if this is the only thing you're going to contribute?
Right. Just like you should have just sent your guest book via email to everyone and had them sign it and not show up.
Exactly. I wonder if it's still up, if we can find it in the Wayback Machine.
Let's ask Melissa. If there's somebody who will find it, it's Melissa.
Yes, she would. So essentially, then we get back to the house and Tokyo and Julie start to have a conversation in the backyard. And Julie kind of like doesn't really let Tokyo get his point across, which is a theme.
It's all the time.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up, Julie. Just shut the fuck up. Like, you have one job right now, and it's to shut the fuck up.
Yeah. Just listen. Just stop and listen to what this man is telling you. So basically he tells her, and this is why I think this is like the word of the episode, is that she was belligerent. And he was like, do you know what I mean by that? And she was like, I was stubborn. He was like, no, you were being warlike. You were fighting everybody. You would not leave. Like you kind of like forced our hand to force you out. First of all, and it's not even only the roommates that wanted her out. Security wanted her to go. Production wanted her to go. I almost wish that security was the one that did this. So we wouldn't have to have this on Tokyo, because this is such an awful situation that she puts Tokyo in. It's just so unfair. It is just so unfair. This man slept on the floor on a towel next to you while you were maybe in your vomit. He might have slept in your vomit because she vomited on the floor in that corner. And that's where Melissa stepped. So he's sleeping essentially on your vomit. And like, this is really what you're doing. No apology. No thank you for taking care of me. No, you're actually blaming him for marks on your body that you caused yourself. And then you're saying that he was touching you when you didn't want to be touched. Like, you were not in your right mind to say, like, I don't want to say you're not in your right mind to say, like, don't touch me, because people are. But like, this is not that situation. So essentially she's just like, well, body autonomy, bro. Like, I don't want to be touched. No, like, let me. If I fall on my face, let me. And he's like, no, you did fall on your face. And she's like, well, if I did, and he's like, no, there's no if you did. Like, you fell on your face. And basically she says that let me just do my own thing. Like, you don't have to take care of me. You're being overprotective. And he kind of like shuts down and goes back into kind of a little bit of that like protective armor that he used to have in the old.
Rightfully so, though.
Rightfully so. I
What
agree.
2000, we could have used more Tokyo, but 2022 right now, I would be shutting it down too.
1,000%.
She does not give a fuck about your perspective.
No, not at all. And I think like as this conversation was happening, he really realized like this is not a person that is safe and this is not a person that I can trust. And he kind of says that, like I can no longer trust Julie. Like I'm uncomfortable. So he basically just, puts his proverbial suit of armor on and is like, I'm either with you 100% or I'm not with you at all. And she's like, don't be like that because that's not going to work for me. And he says, it's not your choice. It's mine. Like, this is it. Basically, he's saying like, I'm not fucking with you anymore. Like,
yeah,
you had one shot and you're twisting this narrative. And he talks a lot about the racial aspect of it, which obviously as two white women, we can't really speak on from experience, but he's a black man who is helping a white woman. And white women have this victim perception just consistently across the board, right? And there's so much connotation. She has done it already. But even like aside from her, like just generally in society, there's always this connotation that like the white woman is the victim and that like black men, either prey on white women or whatever. And it's just like it's a really, really negative like stereotype. It's a negative, racial. I'm trying to think of the word racial like what's the word I'm looking for? Where it just is over. It's a reality. It's a reality that this is something that, people of color and black men have to deal with in their lives, that there's this connotation, this negative connotation around them, which is not true. It's not true. So she's playing right into that. And she's twisting this narrative of Tokyo taking care of her into this thing that already exists as such a negative stereotype. And he's just like, nope, this is not happening. Like, I'm not allowing this to happen. And this will not take place in my space. And this is where I think I really would love some of the roommates to step in because, like you're saying, Melissa has always been the one to really stand up for some of these racial issues. Tokyo now is essentially a victim of her ignorance and her racism. And no one else is really standing up for him aside from Melissa, who's the only other person of color in the house. And I was really, really hoping that we would see more from the roommates and be like, you cannot do what you're doing. Like, you cannot do what you're doing here.
I'm hoping that next episode, some people step up because I feel like we kind of leave the episode, not to fast forward too much, in a place where like more conversation is going to happen.
Yeah.
But I also am not I'm not sure if it's going to happen, but I'm hoping it does. However, like Melissa walking off in the preview doesn't, I don't know. But yeah, you're right in that. Where's everyone else besides just sitting there? What are you guys doing?
Right. And I think like this is some of the most important times or the most important areas where like an ally can step up and tell, because Julie's not listening. Julie is coming from a place of being defensive, as people are. I mean, we see it. If you're a Survivor fan, we saw it in last week's episode of Survivor where there were some racial conversations brought up at tribal council. No one ever said the word racist. No one said the word racism. And the one white person in the room that was defensive about it immediately was like, so you're saying I'm racist? Essentially exactly what Julie did. You're saying I'm racist and I'm a homophobe in the first episode. It's always people that are insecure about that or like feel that way who then immediately get defensive when any conversation like that comes up. And learning and opening your mind to hear other people's perspectives. And she's refusing to do that.
Yeah. Oh, Nitro doesn't approve of Julie either.
No.
Actually, I mean, as I said, he was very startled by me and Julie this morning. Morning. No, I agree. Like, this goes into a bigger conversation I think like you and I could have forever, is that like the word ally, I bet you every single person in that house would say like, no, I 100% support people of color. I'm an
Yeah.
ally to you guys, whatever. But like, show the fuck up.
Yeah.
Like,
Where is your
show
action?
up.
Where's
Yeah,
the action?
and that was incredibly disappointing and like prevalent because even still, like when we get further in the episode and you have the whole like house meeting or whatever, it's just Melissa and Tokyo
Yeah.
talking. Like, yeah, sure. Matt was like, should we? Yeah, let's have the group conversation. But like, otherwise,
Right.
like, no one else is showing up, and that's it. People need to show up. Like, white people need to show up for people of color in situations like this, especially when the person who is being outrageous, who is being
Yeah.
racist, is a white person. Show
Right.
up, use your words. Like, yes, absolutely, Tokyo and Melissa are capable of handling it on their own,
A
but
thousand
also they
percent.
should not have to.
They shouldn't have to. And
Um,
they have had to for their entire lives. They have had to. And it's not their responsibility only to carry this on
mhm.
their shoulders. Like they need support. Everybody needs support, and they need support from the people who care about them in the house and like you said, who would consider themselves allies. But you have to, as an ally, have to put yourself into an uncomfortable situation occasionally and stand up for what's right. And that's really, really, really what some of these roommates need to do. And it's just a flashback to the original season when the swamp boat driver
Mhm.
said a racial term and everybody told Melissa not to worry about it and no one stood up for her and she was the only one who was offended. Those people should have been offended for her and she made that point 22 years ago.
Yep.
And we don't see a lot of change from Jamie here because just the fact that he was sitting in the car next to Julie when she was talking about this and he didn't say, regardless of standing up and pointing out the racial aspect of it at all, he didn't even say like that's not what happened.
Right. Like he could have easily contributed there saying,
Yeah.
I was about to do the same thing.
He did what needed to be done. If he didn't do it, I was going to do it.
Mhm.
And I guarantee you she wouldn't have had this reaction if it was Jamie picking her up off the floor.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah. So anyway, so this conversation ends by Julie getting like a switch flipping and her throwing her salad and screaming like, motherfucker. And then she says, I'm done with this conversation. And she goes, turns into full Karen and walks away. Storms off. And it's just like, she just reminds me of every like stereotypical white woman who just like clutches her pearls or would call the police on any black man that you would see on the street. Like she's honestly dangerous. She's a dangerous person. And I
Mhm.
think Melissa mentions later on that she's dangerous. I don't know if it's in the preview or wherever, but she truly is a dangerous person. She cannot be trusted at this point. So anyway, then we pivot a little bit back to the Paul stuff of it all. So we have the Paul meeting. He comes to the house. And this is where I feel like it's a little weird. Like the storytelling of this is a little bit weird because we go from this like Tokyo Julie situation into Danny and Paul. And then we go back to Tokyo and Julie and then we go to Paul. And it's kind of like, I understand they have to mesh it well, but it just feels like we're making like strange cuts because then like you see Julie on the phone and then Julie is the one that goes and answers the door. And then you see Julie and Melissa being like, oh my God, so cute.
Right.
But it's like, wait, this is weird chronologically a little bit.
Yeah, especially for like Melissa to kind of be like as nice to Julie as she was in that moment with what was going on, but it also hadn't escalated to Melissa's involvement yet, so I could see her like being cordial for the sake of it.
Right. Exactly. So Paul gets to the house. He looks totally different. Like almost unrecognizable. I know we haven't seen a ton of his face, but like to me, I was like, this is the same person.
Is it because this is us seeing him at the door, like with no blurred like thing over his face?
Right.
He wasn't. That's not what I expected him to look like at this age.
Right. Same. Agreed. So Danny was saying Paul used to be clean cut. He was more of a conservative dresser, and like kind of the way that he looks now is jarring. So he comes with this like very patterned shirt. It was like a cute shirt, and he has a mustache and like a very trendy haircut. It just looks very different. And Paul says to Danny, like, you look exactly the same. So they go in the back. They sit outside, and they have a conversation, and Danny tells him everything that he feels. He says, the betrayal from Paul and their former best friend kind of just rocks the way that he sees and is able to trust people. He talks about his CPTSD. He admits that he wasn't really ready to be out at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And he also wasn't ready to own the protection of Paul. Like, that was also, not only was he shouldering being so, not even just out, like out in the world, like on such a huge stage. And he says a little bit like everybody watched this show back then, um, and that he went from being someone who just came out recently to his family to being this beacon, activist everywhere and in every, in the public eye. Plus, he has to worry about Paul. And the fact that he's so recognizable, that would make Paul probably also recognizable, who's still in the military at the time. And Paul mentioned, in this conversation that he could have potentially been killed if he was outed. And we get a flashback of Danny saying because of Paul's rank, they believe that he would have been arrested at this time if he were out. And it really made life dangerous for them.
Yeah.
It's just mind-blowing. I mean, this whole situation is mind-blowing, that it feels like 22 years ago feels like a long time ago, but it really wasn't that long ago, that things were so different back then. And things are not perfect now, like, we've talked about, but just the fact that this was in a time that we were alive.
Yeah.
It's just wild.
Do you think that they, sorry, not to interrupt you, do you think that they gave like Paul a stipend back in the day to show up? Like, do you willingly risk your whole livelihood for free?
It's a good question. I was wondering if Paul got paid to be on this.
I'm assuming he definitely got paid to be on this one. Like, I wasn't really even questioning that, but I have to believe that they gave him some sort of compensation.
I don't know. I don't know what kind of compensation the roommates got back then. I mean, I'm sure they got something, obviously. I would assume. Oh, it's so hard. I don't know. I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, to show up not knowing if they'll definitely blur your face out. Like, is love that strong of a drug? I guess. I don't know.
I guess. When you're that young, I guess.
It could be, but anyway. Sorry to interrupt. I was just
No, please.
Came to my brain, had to ask it.
No, I don't know. It is a good question. But essentially Danny admits that if they haven't done the show, that they probably would have separated a lot earlier. But they felt, that their relationship didn't belong to just the two of them. It really belonged to the world more than it belonged to Paul and Danny. Paul doesn't really apologize or take that much accountability for what happened. He kind of was like, I own this.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't know if you find it in your heart to forgive me, but he didn't really say like, I am sorry for all of the hurt that I caused you. We don't get that. If he did, then we didn't see it on the screen.
Yeah, I'm wondering if I mean, I have a feeling that he's probably said that before, and so maybe this was like a different approach of, my bad. I do take ownership, because I'm assuming he's apologized at least a couple of times for that, because I think Danny had said like they've tried to like reconnect, but he really wasn't having it. So
yeah,
I'm sure that Paul was trying to take even, or maybe like a different approach than just the apology, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. You're probably right. I mean, that's pretty much where we end. Danny wishes Paul nothing but positive will. Moving forward, they kind of hug it out, and Paul goes on his way, and Danny now knows that the chapter is entirely closed on this relationship with Paul. So he got the closure that he needed. Any other takeaways from the Paul of it all?
No, I hate that name.
Paul?
I have a very toxic ex named Paul.
Oh.
So me and Danny share that in common.
Okay.
But no, I think that like I hope that we are done though with the Paul
Me too.
storyline for the rest of the homecoming thing. Like, I'm glad we've taken care of it, but I hope it doesn't become something, or like it doesn't keep coming up. Like, let's move on to the next part of this. Like,
Agreed.
Okay, so Matt had to see like an adult gay couple in person twice. Like, once when he was 20 something, and now, like, let's talk to Matt about this. Like,
Do you think that Danny and Paul are the only gay couple Matt has ever interacted with?
Yeah, actually, I do.
You do.
I mean, like,
I mean, I could probably see that. I mean, like, what other situation would Matt put himself in? Maybe. I don't know.
yeah, maybe he's seen some on like Instagram, but I don't think he's like
Maybe.
interacted with people. No, I don't think so. I think that's it.
Matt seems like the kind of guy who, like, if you're walking down the street and he sees a gay couple holding hands and he's with his kids, he'll like shield his kids' eyes.
Probably.
Yeah. Like, I'm not, like, I 100% believe that he would do that.
He would need to be an octopus because he would
Yeah. Yeah.
need 6 hands and one for his own, so that's 7. And then
I know it's true. One for his wife. Got to cover the
yeah,
wife
there we
size
go.
too.
Perfect. So maybe Matt's an octopus.
Maybe. So then we get Julie in the hot tub.
This part. I've been
This
waiting.
is where we really go off the rails. As if we weren't already off the rails this whole season so far, actually, with Julie. This is where we really go off the rails. So she's in the hot tub on the phone with her husband, and she's saying, the day ended early today, and here I am in the hot tub alone. She starts complaining about the roommates, and then she says something about Melissa. And then Melissa, we go into Melissa's room with Kelly, and Melissa says, "I know this bitch isn't talking about me right now." Gets out of bed and goes to the window.
Fucking bitch.
Oh yeah, I know this fucking bitch isn't talking about me right now. Goes to the window, listens to what she's saying. Kelly gets up also and goes and listens to what she's saying. She's basically saying Kelly's basically vapor this whole time. I don't remember exactly what she said about Melissa. I didn't write it down, but she basically said like she's like unwilling to.
Yeah, she's not giving her the time of day to like change her perspective on Julie.
Right. She was like, Matt is taking naps during the day, which I'm like, I love a nap during the day. It's like my favorite thing.
If I was away from my 6 kids for 2 weeks, I would nap every single day.
I don't have any kids and I nap during the day. Any chance that I can nap during the day, I will nap during the day. It's my favorite thing to do. I love it. I love a nap. So you know what? Fuck you, Julie, for not liking it. Like, don't hate on naps, okay? She basically says like things with Tokyo aren't the same anymore. Says Kelly's basically vapor this whole time.
Which what is that? Like, what is that an insult? What is that?
I don't even know. Like, I don't even know. It's like she's not even there, I guess, is what she's trying to say, but whatever. So she basically says, I don't know how to make any more good TV. I took a bullet for the whole cast and got myself sloppy drunk and passed out. What more do they want? And then she said, I would try and flirt it up with some of these guys, but I can't even stomach it. She's saying this to her husband.
Mm-hmm.
What is happening?
Okay, now we obviously talk a lot of TV together. So
yes.
Didn't I at one point say about Julie that I didn't know if she was trying to like be good television or if this was just her? Didn't I say that on one of our home?
I think you did, yeah. I think you did.
When I saw this, I was like, I fucking knew it. Like, I knew that this is what she was trying to do. And so now it just makes it even harder because, like, whether or not anything she's done has been real or fake, you can't, like, discern between the two, which means, like, you're willing to fake being racist, even if you aren't racist, but I don't think that's
I don't think that's fake.
But no,
that part's like
her putting on this thing like, oh, I'm just trying to be good TV. Like, that's not what this is. And Kelly even says that. She's like, I don't care if we make boring television. Like, the point of us is to get together after 20 years and just like reconnect. It's not
right
to make good TV. Oh, I remember what I said it was because of like the shower thing when she's like, there's 3 shower heads.
Yeah.
With me. Like, What are you trying to
Oh,
do? What are you trying to
absolutely.
do? When she said this, I don't know if I shrieked. I made this loud noise. It was just like, I cannot believe, like, she knows that like, this is gonna get picked up.
I honestly, I was shocked. I was shocked to hear her saying this because we know that Julie is a problematic person. She was problematic on her original season. Some of it we can say she was sheltered. She grew up as a Mormon. She didn't have all of these life experiences. So at that point, it seemed like she was trying to learn and become a better person and learn about things that were outside of her comfort zone. But on the challenge, she was problematic. I mean, she literally tried to murder Veronica. She's been problematic since then. And this is like on a whole other scale of like unhinged. Like she's an unhinged person. This is the type of person that you cannot predict what their next move is going to be. And that's why they are scary
Mm-hmm.
because nothing is off limits to a person like this. And it's like, this is like a scary person to be around.
I just I didn't even bring it that far in my thinking. It was more just shocked in the fact that, like, what did she think she was coming here to do? What, like, who spoke to her before this? And did they like hype her up to have this sort of mindset? Like, did
Right.
she be like, oh, so are we like gonna be seeing hookups and stuff? Like, she even said like, I thought there was gonna be like a sexy vibe at the club, and like what are you expecting? You all are like married with kids, married and or with kids. Literally
Right.
every single person there is either married and or with kids.
Yep.
And you're seeing each other after however long, and there's like some tension, but like some good memories, and it's just like getting the gang back together. What are you
Right.
expecting on this? And then you being like, I got blackout drunk, and how can I be better TV than what I was? Like, what?
It's just
Stop.
like, who thinks like this? And then obviously she has a husband who enables this kind of behavior. So it's like there's just something wrong here. And I've been talking to a friend, shout out to Eric if you're listening, who has a theory that Julie is really putting on a show to get cast on the challenge.
You
And I
think
can
like
see
Challenge All
it,
Stars?
I guess, or even the regular challenge. I mean, I don't know.
Do not bring that
Um,
bitch on the regular challenge. Like
don't bring her on anything. Don't
I
reward
mean,
this
yes,
behavior.
yes,
Do
yes.
not reward
Well,
this behavior.
no, because they've had Veronica back, and there's no way on like Challenge All Stars. There's no way that Veronica will show up if Julie's there, and people are going to want Veronica there over Julie ten
Oh, a
times
thousand
out of
percent.
10. So, um, maybe. I mean, I don't think that's like a bad idea, but also it's just the fact of, like you're saying, she's a liability. Like, you can't have someone like her around. That's like having a Camilla around, and just
Right.
when they'll pop off to pop off because they think that that's what you want versus like,
Right.
I don't know, common decency and safety, and there's a whole slew of reasons not to do
Right.
the things that Julie does. But I just I did not even get that far in my thinking because
Hmm.
I was just shocked that she was sitting there being like, I'm trying to be good TV. What, this isn't the fucking like live feeds of Big Brother. Like, there
Right.
is no prize, there is nothing. Like, they're gonna show this show no matter if you are the most boring person or not. Cause
I
like
know.
the themes and the storylines have created themselves over the last 20 years. You do not need to show up and be
Right.
the drunk bitch falling out of cars. Like, they don't need that from you.
No, they don't. And the Boone and Murray are such like just the company itself is like such a good story. They've edited this show in the past to be like incredible. They're great storytellers. Like these editors know what they're doing. They don't need you to self-produce yourself into situations that'll quote unquote make good TV. Like there's obviously something that she wants to get out of this moving
Mhm.
forward. Like if it's just like getting herself back into the public eye or whatever it is, but it's like really gross and it's honestly unhinged and scary. And so she tweeted about this.
Oh, wow. I've seen that she's on Twitter, and I can't bring myself to even look. I
Well,
like
so
to bask
she
in the
tweeted,
Melissa of it all.
yeah. So Melissa has a private Twitter
Mhm.
that she posted some things in response to this. I won't really out them because it's a private Twitter, but she did have a few things to say in response. So she does also have her public Twitter that's for the show. But Julie tweeted, "Before all you sleuths get excited, why don't you roll back the tape to 2:59 and look at my back? Maybe not everything Melissa says is always the truth. I know he didn't mean any harm and I love him, but I didn't want his help and I'm allowed to have boundaries too. Hashtag not racial." So yeah, I mean, this is like a little bit more pertinent to what happened like later in the episode, but I just think I can see her becoming like this like victimized white woman that ends up on like Fox News morning show at some point, some local Fox News morning show. Kind of like standing up for the white ladies, you know what I mean? Like where she's like, "Oh, people are trying to cancel me," like anti-cancel culture type of Fox News host. So that's my prediction for Julie, because I do not think they will bring a liability like this onto the challenge. No. I think they've been doing a really good job of, well, it's questionable. I think they've been trying to do a better job of casting on the challenge and not casting people who have problematic backgrounds. And she is like the ultimate problematic person at this point. So I don't think there's any way they would include her on the show.
Yeah, I honestly don't even know if her motive is like that deep. I mean, maybe I can't see a normal challenge, but challenge All Stars maybe. But even still, like,
well, the rumor is that she was cast on the first All Stars and then got cut because of like, this is supposedly what happened with a few people that were supposedly cast, but got removed because of things that happened in the past, like problematic things that have happened in the past. And because she tried to murder Veronica, essentially, they kept her off because they felt she was a liability. I don't know if that's true or not. That's just kind of what was like floating around at the time. So maybe she's trying to get her foot back in the door. I mean, who knows? Either way, this is a scary person that we're dealing with is the long and short of it. She's just frightening.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that I can't wait for the instance because it has to come up. Two of them know what she said in that hot tub, and I know that, like, not to move on to the next scene or whatever, like scenes later, but Melissa implies to Tokyo, she doesn't say this, like, she doesn't say straight up, "I heard her in the hot tub and this is what she's doing," but both Kelly and Melissa heard this conversation of, what else can they want out of me? I'm trying to make good television. Like, and Kelly and Melissa's response is like, "Okay, so you're just trying to manipulate shit." Like, that's what it comes down to. And Melissa says this to Tokyo. Like, she is trying to be manipulative for the sake of TV. She doesn't even, it's kind of cool in a way that Tokyo doesn't even question it in terms of like, how do you know this? Why do you think this? He's just like, all right, like, I believe you entirely. And I think that kind of shows how quickly the two of them have not just reconnected, but I guess even connected in general. Their relationship was very distant on the first season, that how quickly they've connected. And it's like, makes sense. So I'm waiting for the upfront of it all. Who is going to be the one? And like, this would be a great place for Kelly to kind of like use her words, not in a book, and be like, "Well, actually, she said this," and she has very concrete evidence of Julie like trying to do this. So
it's true.
But I'm waiting for this to come up in conversation again. Like Melissa implies it with Tokyo. I think she alluded to it a little bit in the first part of the group conversation, but like, we don't have any direct, like, you were in the hot tub on the phone with your husband saying A, B, and C. This is how we know, like, you're a piece of shit.
Right. Exactly. And I'm hoping that we get there at a certain point. In between the Melissa and Tokyo conversation, we do get Tokyo saying he wants to change his room. So Jamie goes and breaks the news to Julie that, like, listen, Tokyo feels like, he says that he can't trust Julie. She's twisting his words and his actions around on purpose. She's changing the narrative. He feels uncomfortable in the current situation that he's in and wants to move his room. Totally valid. There's no way that this man should be forced to stay in a room with this unhinged person. So Jamie goes and tells Julie, Tokyo feels uncomfortable. He's like, don't make a big deal out of it. We're just going to move the bed out. And she's like, so I'm going to be in a room alone. And it's just like, yeah, nobody wants to be around you because you're actually like a scary person. I know I keep saying unhinged, but she is unhinged. So Jamie was like, Julie eventually was like, well, why don't you just switch with him? And then she's like, oh, because you don't want to do that. And he said, that adds a level of complexity. And I want to know what you think he means by that.
Oh, it's 100%. My wife knows that we made out 20 something years ago, and that I told her I would not stay in the same room as you for the sake of keeping my marriage happy. Happy wife, happy life. I'm going to do what my wife wants me to do. That's 100% what I think it is.
Yeah. There's also shout out again to Eric, who is a friend who watches the show, who also gives me all the good gossip. Told me that Susie Meister, who has a podcast with Sarah from Real World Brooklyn, said that Jamie hooked up with, I think it was her and Julie on a bus on one of the challenges. I don't know if it was necessarily her or Julie and somebody else. I can go back and look, but there has been other hookups aside from the makeout in the house, apparently. So I think that's why that adds a level of complexity. And I also think that's why she was saying, in the preview, saying that there was unfinished business. So yes, I'm with you 100%. I agree. I just wanted to see if you took that same connotation from it.
The one thing I want to add to that is Eric include me on the good gossip. Thanks. Like, the fact that you're leaving me out of it is a little fucked up. So, I want this too.
Yeah. Share the wealth. I'll share the wealth too if he doesn't. So essentially that's kind of where we leave off. And then, Tokyo kind of sits around and he thinks, it's not really fair for him. Well, we get the Melissa and Tokyo conversation about how Melissa is like, this feels like weird manipulation to me. She has some layered shit going on. And she's like, she says to us in the confessional that she feels protective of Tokyo. And she's kind of considering the bigger picture. She tells him she's stuck between the layered weirdness of this because if she addresses the situation with Julie, she feeds into it. She's giving Julie what she wants. And if she doesn't, she's letting it happen. And it's basically, they're coming into the house as two Black people, and he is a Black man who helped a white woman who is now using that against him and weaponizing it, essentially, making herself the victim. And they're pretty much saying, like, if we don't say what the issue is, then we're not doing essentially the right thing. We're letting it continue to happen, because if we don't, if Tokyo basically says, if I move my room without telling her why, then it just is kind of sweeping it under the rug, and I'm just moving the room, and it's putting like almost a Band-Aid over he doesn't really say this, but it's like putting a Band-Aid on the situation, but it's not addressing the root of the situation.
Right.
So he decides to call a house meeting. And I love that Melissa said she's protective of Tokyo, because like, I want everybody to protect Tokyo. We need to protect Tokyo at all costs. Like, he is truly such like a sensitive soul. And I know we've said this before. And when I was watching him take care of Julie, knowing what was going to come, it just like made me sick to my stomach. Like, he is so sweet. He is so sweet and selfless and generous, and just like, I just feel so bad. I just feel so bad for him. It truly made me want to just cry for him because of what she does and what she turns us into. So we get Melissa talking about, a flashback of former Real World seasons. And she basically says, as the people of color in the house on reality TV, we're thrust into this position to become teachers, whether we want it or not, especially the way that the casting was up until very recently on reality television as a whole. I know Viacom is doing 50% POC casting now moving forward in the challenge. I know Survivor is doing that as well. Big Brother is doing that as well. The Real Housewives has a really long way to go before we get some actual diversity on those shows. But just in general, the theme is that we get maybe one person of color, maybe one person who's LGBTQ plus, who part of that community, and that's the quote unquote representation. But they're put into a house with a bunch of ignorant white people who don't, a bunch of Julies essentially, who then situations happen, as they do, because situations happen all the time in real life. And it becomes the responsibility of the people of color in the house, or if it's an issue with, sexuality, the person who could be part of the LGBTQ community is then put into the position where they have to teach these ignorant people. And it's not really fair to them to have to constantly play this role on television. But they give us clips and clips on top of clips on top of clips of former seasons where this is the case. And we get never before seen footage of Melissa talking to Jamie about white privilege. And in the clip from 22 years ago, she's saying, if you don't understand white privilege and whiteness, then you really can't understand racism, and that white and black are intertwined. And that's just really how it is. And it just is so telling because I feel like a lot of white people didn't start thinking about or understand. A lot of people don't. A lot of white people are refusing to believe white privilege is even a thing.
Still don't
They
get
hadn't
it.
even heard that term before until what, 5 years?
Yeah.
And then, to actually learn about it and understand it for those who will and are willing. I mean, it's a relatively recent development. And Melissa was on TV, whether or not they showed the clip or not, she was still on TV at the time talking about this in the year 2000. Like, it's just it's good that we're making steps forward, but like we have to do better and not like force every black person on television to have to teach all the white people. Like we all have to take onus of learning here, and listening and reading and educating ourselves, because it's just not fair, essentially. So she basically says she didn't mean to be a spokesperson for that, but a lot of people had reached out to her after the show and said, she really enlightened them, and they really hadn't thought about some of these things before. So that's pretty much where we leave off with Tokyo and Melissa.
Yeah, and I love that their new formed connection and just how quickly it's happened and just like how genuine it seems, and it makes you wish that like Tokyo was at a place to be more open with people 20 years ago, because you just like see the quality of him and Melissa especially.
Exactly.
And it's like, oh man, we could have had more of that. But
I know.
I'm glad we're here now. And
me too.
I also just like, sad's not the right word, but I feel for them in that like it's still 22 years later, and like they're still having, especially Melissa, having to take this role where it's like it's over 2 decades, and and with everything that has happened in the last 20 years, and forget the last 20 years, like take the last 4, and you still like don't have enough of a perspective to even see how this could be the reality for Tokyo, when you're out here saying, he did this to me, this black man hurt me. Like, she hasn't said this black man hurt me, but Tokyo is a black man, therefore you are saying it. And so how have you lived the last even just 4 to 5 years, and then to not even be able to consider this perspective that could be true is, I want to say it's mind-blowing, but at the same time, like, it's not surprising in the same way. I don't know. It's
the mind-blowing part about it
for them is really what it comes down to.
Yes. And I think the mind-blowing part about it is that they're literally explaining to Julie in very clear reasoning and terms why what she's doing is harmful. And she just continues and continues and continues to be defensive, and she's unwilling to listen. And that's the part that's mind-blowing. I think at least in the original season, she seemed more willing to listen and to learn. Here, it's like she's a fully baked person. She's never going to change. And she's just going to fight back and be defensive. Like, she's unwilling to learn. And that's like the frustrating part. And that's why I just want to say to Melissa and to Tokyo, like, just protect your peace. This person is not worth it. Like, it's not worth it. So we get to a point where Tokyo calls a house meeting. He wants to take the opportunity to be open because he feels like he wasn't open 22 years ago, and he wants to be open now and be more vulnerable. So he doesn't actually take into consideration until he's sitting in a confessional. It's like, I didn't even really think about the fact that like 22 years ago, they called a house meeting for me, and now I'm the one calling a house meeting. And Jamie says, he is more wise. He's more present now. So I'm just happy to see that he's willing to put himself out there and be vulnerable with the roommates. But again, just protect your peace, Tokyo. Don't let this bad woman hurt you is all I have to say about it. But so he calls the house meeting. They sit in the back. everybody's like, yeah, definitely, let's have a meeting. And Julie's like, here we go. So it's like she comes in immediately with this like stank ass attitude. So he sits down, he says, he wants to take this one moment to be vulnerable. Everything he did was trying to help a friend and was looked at negatively. And immediately Julie cuts him off and he said, this is my moment. Give me a moment. Let me finish, essentially. And he says, when you start creating a different narrative, you're creating something that doesn't exist and you're presenting it as if he's, harmed her. And that's not what happened. So she kind of just is like, okay, fine. So you want to switch rooms? Like, let's just figure out a way to make it happen. He's like, no, like, you're not hearing me. And that's kind of when Melissa jumps in and she goes, it's not about this. Like, you're blaming this man who took care of you for your bruises. And Julie was like, well, he was touching me and whatever. And Melissa's also like, and you also fell on the ground and you also walked into a tree. And Julie was like, I mean, that might have happened, but I don't have a lot of memory of it. And then she also says, fine, Melissa, that can be your reason. And basically is saying like Melissa's doing anything that she can to make a villain out of Julie, which is Julie's doing everything she can to make a villain out of herself. Let's be clear. And we basically end up we don't get a ton of the meeting. It sounds like we're going to get a lot more of it next week. But Melissa basically says the optics you're creating is that a black man hurt a white woman, and I don't want to be on that kind of TV show. And that's really where the episode ends. But Julie is just unwilling. She's basically blaming Melissa because she essentially is saying like, well, you don't like me anyway, and you want me to be the villain, and you're unwilling to move beyond whatever happened. This is just a mess. It's just a mess.
What do you think of Melissa's wording at the end there? Because that was incredibly intentional, in my opinion, when she said, I don't want to be on this type of TV show, where she knows that Julie is here with the mindset that she has to craft this TV show. She has to like almost be in the producer's seat. It almost like gives me Johnny Bananas-esque vibes of like, especially once Johnny got super comfortable on the challenge of how he purposefully did things, knowing that it would be that would make the air like that. This is going to get screen time. Like I'm seeing similarities in that. But when I heard her say like, oh, I don't want to be on that type of TV show, like I think she is trying to like Hansel and Gretel the way for Julie to realize like, I heard you in that hot tub.
Yeah.
I know what you said about me. I know what you said about all of us. Like, please know that I know. And I think that was very intentional. What did you think about that wording?
Yeah, I think it was intentional as well. And I think, she had posted, and I don't know if it was on Twitter or on Instagram or where she mentioned, but she said that she was really saying that in a way to like break the fourth wall and say that also to the producers that she didn't want to be on a TV show like this, and that she's thankful that they kind of showed the full story and how it really played out, because they showed everything that happened.
Right.
Because if, let's say they didn't, and Melissa was coming out this in the same way that she is, rightfully so, because she has the full story and we didn't have the full story. It could have made Melissa look not great, right? Like
it would double down on the narrative they created 20 years ago when she was saying like with the whole letter thing.
Exactly.
She didn't want that to happen.
Yeah, exactly. So she said she was very thankful that the producers let the show and the editors let the show play out exactly how it did. And really show the full story. And I think you're right. I think she is intentionally addressing the Julie of it all, addressing the producers and saying like, this is not something that I'm willing to do. And good for her. I don't think she should be willing to do that. I don't think anybody should be willing to do that, especially like they've been out of the public eye for so long. It's not like they're desperate to be on television. Like they don't need this, they all, especially this cast, is living their own private lives, doing their own thing. Like there's no reason to sacrifice your convictions and what you believe in and what you feel strongly about just to be on TV. Like there's no reason.
No, I agree with you on that.
And that's where we ended the episode.
Yeah, we're getting more of the house meeting. That's for sure.
We are.
And something that like kind of I just like I wish we got all of these, but at the same time I'm glad we didn't, and that we have to wait week by week, because otherwise there'd be a lot to talk about and watch all at once. But I just want to see how these things continue to evolve within the house. Like I'm very interested, because that's a weird energy. Like it's been a weird energy from Julie the whole time, but even more so now after this, like what happens? And
Mhm.
I also
Part of
just
me wonders if Julie is gonna stay on the show.
I wouldn't mind if she left. Like that's
Me
fine by me.
neither.
Like, give
The
me
only reason I say that is because I feel like we didn't get a ton more in the trailer than what we've already seen. I
hmm
know we do hear from her about, like, leaving the Mormon religion, which we didn't get yet,
yeah,
which, like, I don't need a Julie redemption story here.
no.
They can keep it. I
Yeah.
don't care. Keep it.
I would like to see more from Jamie. I'm hoping we
Me
get a
too.
bit and Kelly. I would like to
Yeah.
know a little bit more about what they've been up to. Like I heard that Jamie spent time at like a I might say the wrong word here, monastery. What
Oh.
is that a right the right term? Am I making up a religious
No, I
establishment right
think
now?
that's
Yeah,
no, I think it's a thing.
before one of the seasons of the challenge that he was on. So like he's
Oh.
done some shit. Like let's hear about
Hmm.
it. And
I would love to hear about that.
so yeah, I'm done with the Paul storyline. Thank you for it.
Yep.
I want to see how this like evolves with Julie, and I'm hoping that Tokyo gets to come out of this in this situation, not the whole experience, but this
Mhm.
situation, um, with like the people around him having his back outside Melissa, because Melissa clearly is already showing that she has it,
Yeah.
and I would love to hear more from Jamie and Kelly on just like everything right now, because I feel like they're kind of just
Agree.
existing at the moment.
Yeah. I totally agree. It seems like things with Tokyo and the roommates are okay. I mean, he's been posting on social media a lot of like group
Yeah,
photos and stuff. So it seems like he's still like really interested in this whole process, which I'm happy to see because I don't want this to be damaging for him
right.
at all.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. But that's it. That's the episode. More to come of this house meeting next week. Anything else, Carrie, that you want to talk about from this week?
No, I just I wasn't okay. So when you asked me to podcast about this, I was like, yeah, I haven't like watched any of the homecoming
Hmm.
seasons yet, and what like I've had so many reactions to just like 3 episodes of a show
Yeah.
that I'm just like so happy that I am like part of the viewing audience right
Yeah.
now. Um, and so I'm just really enjoying this experience. That's where I'm at.
Good. I am too. I look forward to talking about this every single week. I look forward to watching it every single week. I
Mhm.
can't believe next week we're going to be at the halfway point. I think it's only an 8 episode series, so I'm like already feeling like it's going to be over too soon, but I'm just thankful that we're getting it at all and that we're getting so many of these people back in our lives who have been kind of off the grid for the last few years. So I'm glad that we can at least follow them on social media, keep up with them now, which is nice.
I agree. Are we at the
Okay.
social media ourselves?
I think
Like you're saying?
we are. Carrie, where can people find you?
KGD26 on like everything Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Venmo, the works. So if you follow me on Twitter, you can see me talking to Melissa. That's really what's going on there. But yeah,
Which I love
also,
for you.
yes, I was so happy. I'm like, I can't wait to tell Katie. Um, and in terms of silent podcasts, so I'm actually recording another podcast tonight. We're going to do our first circle podcast of the season. So we'll be covering episodes 1 and 2. So if you haven't watched it yet, I'm definitely entertained. No spoilers, but it's already been all over social media. Like Mel B and Emma, aka Scary Spice and Baby Spice, are in the circle, and they are so funny. Like
So they're
they're
actually playing.
they're actually playing.
Okay, interesting.
So
I haven't watched anything yet.
not to give away too much, but like um their motive is if they don't get figured out, then the prize at the end of the season increases for the winner. So
Oh wow,
my
that's
guess
awesome.
is if like they make the final 5, that they'll reveal them before the final vote. Maybe I'm not sure.
Okay,
Um, and that would allow the winner to win more money. But the two of them are just so funny, like bantering back and
that's
forth. Like
amazing.
that alone is worth watching the circle for.
Okay, good to
Um,
know. Good
so
to
yeah,
know. I
we've
was
got
undecided if I was going to watch.
yeah, it's definitely so far so good. It's like light, easy watching. I will say the intros are a bit much, but once they like get settled, so basically from like the second half of the first episode on, people start showing like more of their, I think, like actual personality and not like hyped up I'm on a game show personality a bit. And everyone's enjoyable, witty. Like I'm liking it at a very like, I like strategy and stuff, but it's just like it's enjoyable to watch. So that's my plug for The Circle. If you are on the fence, because I will admit I didn't watch last season. I also heard last season wasn't that great. But so far so good. Jump on that bandwagon. Katie and I do Real Housewives together, so we'll have another episode of that coming up this weekend. And then next week, Challenge All Stars starts. So like, you'll be getting 4 to 5 podcasts a week from me for the next like month. So sorry, or you're welcome, whatever one that suits for your interest. Like, I understand both. So I'm self-aware in that. But so yeah, that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Doing so much these days.
Right?
Cool. Well, you can find me at Real Slim Katie on Twitter and Instagram. I don't really do much on Instagram, but feel free to pop by anyway if you would like to. You can also find me on twitch.tv/Real Slim Katie with an underscore. Play a lot of like cozy little cute games that aren't too complicated because I'm not really a gamer. But we talk a lot about reality TV and a ton of other things over there. So please feel free to stop by, drop a follow if you would like to. It is free to do so. So definitely feel free to do that. And then on Silent Podcasts, we are covering Big Brother Canada season 10. The finale is in 1 hour from now. So we're about to find out who wins. I will be covering that with Isaiah, Lance, and Josiane. And we have been doing Exit Press, which is really awesome. So we posted our really great interview with Helena. I think we only posted audio only for now, but the video will be coming. So definitely feel free to check that out. She gave a lot of really interesting information that could lead you to maybe have an idea of who she would vote for at the end. We also are going to be doing Exit Press for the finalists, which will probably be coming out tomorrow. So definitely check us out there. And then we'll be doing a recap of the whole season at some point anyway, just to kind of finish all of that out. And then you can also find me with Kari talking about Real Housewives on the Cool Water Show. So as Kari already said, we just started covering Real Housewives of Atlanta. They're back. Really excited to be talking about these wonderful women. So we'll be covering that in the New Jersey reunion, which was very interesting. So those are all the things I'm doing.
Before Reddit took down my post of our podcast on one of the subreddits, one of the moderators, which I don't understand why we can't post podcasts on there. Like, don't you want different, whatever. Someone commented that they love the name of our show. So
yay! I was like, well, shout out to that person.
When we heard it, I was like, this has to be it. Like, it's a niche comment, but it is so good. So
yes.
And then here's our stuff.
Yeah, you can also follow Silent Podcasts on anywhere on social media. We are on Twitter at silent_podcasts. We are on YouTube at Silent Podcasts. We're on Twitch at Silent Podcasts. We're doing a ton. The momentum is really, really running. We have Top Chef podcast going on, hosted by Naomi, Gia, Nicole. We have all the podcasts we were just talking about. We have Survivor, hosted by Gia. There was a really, really great Survivor podcast that was out the other day that covers all things identity and diversity based on some of the conversations that have taken place in the last week's episode. So definitely highly recommend listening to that. We have international Survivor coverage covered by Jason. I'm not sure if we have a season on right now, but he's super consistent in releasing that. So we have plenty for you to listen to. We have some scripted stuff coming up. So definitely, as Kari said, we'll have the challenge, we'll have the circle. So we are going to be overloading you with content. So definitely feel free to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts, or check it out on Twitch and on YouTube.
There we go.
And have a great... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, we should be back probably Wednesday night next week. So we were a little late today, but that's because there's some shenanigans going on in New York City related to Survivor and RHAP. So yeah, all fun stuff happening. So it's been a crazy week, but we had to make sure that we talked about this show because we love it so much. So, and shout out to our live listeners. Yes, shout out to everybody who stopped by in the chat. We really, really appreciate it. Yeah. It was great to see you all. Shout out to Valencia, who's here every time. You are a queen. And
we'll be back next
Yeah.
week, next Wednesday. So until then, have a great week and a great weekend and a great day.
A great
I'll talk to you
everything.
soon.
Adios.